Since I just saw yet another Southern Black American disparaging Northern Black Americans, I wanted to make this video. I've been wanting to make this video for a long time because as much as we stress learning about our Black Southern American culture, and if you have Black Southern American culture, those are the specific Black people I'm talking about, not talking about other people. But we do not take the time to learn about Northern Black American culture, namely during slavery, post-slavery, during the several migrations, and even right now. So this video is gonna be long, but I'm gonna cover all the stuff I want to cover. So I've never identified as a Northerner, and I still don't, but I never knew how much of a Northerner I was until I moved to the South, and they remind you of it every 5 seconds. I'm from Detroit, which is the Midwest, and I didn't realize how many people don't know which states are in the Midwest until I left the Midwest. I went to college in upstate New York, so we're going to classify that as the East Coast. I lived in New Orleans for 12 years. And I did commute the last 5.5 years I commuted from New Orleans to Baton Rouge, so that constitutes my Southern experience. And now I live in Los Angeles, so that's the West Coast. It became so insufferable living in the South because Southern people are always telling you, I was raised right, I was raised right. And in the multiple places that I've lived across this country, I have never experienced people telling me that the way I was raised wasn't the right way as much as when I lived in the South. Also, I've never been so confused about what Black Southern people think Northern Black people did with our Blackness when we moved up North, because when Black Southern people talk about certain cultural practices, I'm like, I did that growing up, I did that growing up, I did that growing up. Now, if it's environmental, probably not, but if it's like food and all that stuff, what are we talking about? I will say, because I am from Detroit, I'm realizing this year, maybe that is a unique experience. I'm not really tapped into how other Northern Black people live and maybe what they tossed to the side when they moved up North. But the Detroit, Chicago people in that great migration where we were coming up from Mississippi, Arkansas, Alabama, we was from the South, we kept our stuff. Yes, like I don't understand. Do y'all think we became Wahite people when we moved to the North? Because the way y'all talk about Black Northern people, have y'all been here? When we talk about the Black church, yes, there are some like speed differences. I know like people praise at a higher BPM up North than in the South, but when I went to church as a child, whether it was Burnett Black Baptist Church, Mount Elliott, God's House of Prayer, my church seemed Southern. Yes, we had Northern accents, but we was squalling, hooping, all the stuff. And I have a personal vendetta against that one Ja P. song where he was like, we gonna clap our hands like we from Durham, North Carolina. And I'm like, when we gonna start clapping our hands different from how I clap my hands in Detroit, Michigan? Because you clapping your hands the same. And then when we talk about the food, I was eating good in the neighborhood. And this is what I was talking about in the comment section of the video I mentioned at the beginning. They was asking me about the food I was eating. I was like, I didn't have no Kraft mac and cheese until I was grown. And that was because that might have been the pandemic, because I moved into I had rented out a room, and them people only gave me 2 shelves in the refrigerator, and I had to keep my stuff in the in my room, so I had a lot of processed food. But throughout my entire childhood, my mama was making real food, real mac and cheese. Like I even had better times with food than some Southern people, because my mama, everybody talk about how they had to eat cereal during the week and eat real food on the weekend. We ate biscuits, bacon, and eggs every day of the week. Cereal was for the weekend in my household. So I don't know what y'all be talking about. My grandma was doing the barrel barbecuing. Like, we didn't just throw away our culture when we moved up North. We was eating good. Now, when we talk about the pickled stuff and chitlins and some of that stuff, that's not my life. That's not my story. We gonna keep that in the South. There was a dude from Alabama who went to God's House of Prayer. He had some pickled pig lips. I'm out. And it's funny how people talk about the influence of Wahite people on Northern or Western culture, but they don't talk about the influence on Southern culture. And some of the Southern stuff that y'all do is from Wahite supremacy. And yes, I do fully accept that large parts of all Black American culture did originate in the South. But also, what we have to understand is that the Black Southern American culture, particularly during slavery, not even particularly, even during Jim Crow, was housed in Wahite supremacy, and that's how we had to interact with other people. Starting there, and since then, a lot of things that we do are because of racism. And when you read more about Wahite supremacy, you can see how that permeates through some aspects of Black American culture, particularly Southern Black American culture. Additionally, I'm not sure if some Black Southern people understand the context of why some Black Northern people don't do some of the things that we used to do. When our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents moved to the North, they hated some of the things that they had to do in the South. So when they moved to the North, they stopped doing some of those things and refused to pass it down to their children. And some stuff did get passed down. Like all my grandmother on my mom's side children, they say yes ma'am, yes sir, all that type of stuff. Even my oldest sister grew up having to say yes ma'am, yes sir. Now, I don't know why me and my twin brother were not taught that, but we are the babies, we are the youngest, and you know how parents get tired by the time they had a last children, so that everything goes out the window, and so that's probably why we didn't learn that growing up. Okay, I'm about to break some of this down because the South is not a monolith, so a lot of my stuff is New Orleans / Louisiana coded, but a lot of this stuff is related to Wahite supremacy. Saying yes sir and yes ma'am. That was a requirement of us having to say that to the Wahite people we met outside of our households. But we understood that as parents, our children were not going to be able to code switch. We couldn't teach our children, okay, talk however you want in our home, but when you go out there, make sure you're saying yes sir, yes ma'am to them. So it became a through line where you're going to say yes sir and yes ma'am in this house so that you don't mistakenly not say it when you're in front of a Wahite person. That is why we do that. And just for those of you who don't know, if you didn't follow them rules, you was going to be up on a tree, down in the ground. We couldn't play. So it was a really serious situation. Another Southern practice that I experienced, being coy and talking around the point. This was the bane of my existence living in the South, my God, on today. Because in the North, we are direct and people love to go straight to the examples of how you can be direct and rude. No, honey. I would just ask the question I wanted to ask or just say the thing, and that was deemed rude. I could say it in the nicest language. I could say it in the most flowery language. I could say it in the most upbeat way, but it was still rude because it was too direct. Even in the past few years of me learning more about the patriarchy, Wahite supremacy, and how different factions of Wahite people move, you can see that is how their culture works, particularly when you move up in socioeconomic status. The higher you go up, the more rich you get, the more they talking around, the more they are doing so much facade, and that is what permeated in Southern culture. So I'm gonna use two examples for this point of like me having people in my life who just couldn't just be direct, and it would have saved them a lot of time because it gave them the blues. So I had an ex. He was getting hit on continually, not in a like really deep way, but this gay guy was hitting on him. And when he told me about it, I was just like, well, why don't you just tell him you're not gay? And he was like, well, that's rude. I'm like, what? How is that rude? Well, tell him you don't play with bats and balls. Like, what are we doing? Like, it's not rude to just tell somebody you are not gay, like if you don't want them to be hitting on you. Now, the other example, I used to go to these Toastmasters meetings, and there was this Hispanic guy. He'd walk up to you, and he was a member of the club, but he's like, oh, do you want to be a business owner? I can see a MLM scheme a mile away. The way they be putting the little phrases, I'm like, no, I don't want to be a business owner. But my friend, she ain't know because she was young. So she went to the house, they put in a DVD, and she like, oh, this is MLM. Now, we had monthly meetings, I guess when she left the meeting, she was like, oh, I'll think about it. Every meeting, he would go to her like, oh, have you thought about it? Da, da, da. I'm like, ma'am, just tell him you don't want to do it. But she couldn't, because that Southern culture is like, you don't want to be mean, but if you just say the thing, this could have been over by now. And I don't know why Southern people think they got a monopoly on niceness. Me personally, being from the Midwest, I was like, y'all not really overwhelmingly nicer than people that are where I'm from. Like, y'all, and actually, y'all is fake nice. Like, considering the phrase bless your heart and what it actually means, that's that coyness, that's that talking around the point. Y'all be mean, all them little Southern phrases. He ain't got the brain and that gave Job, all that stuff. I don't know. I know that's not a phrase. But all them little catchphrases that Southern people got, you is calling people dumb, and you was talking about people right in front of their face, and it just got some flowery language to it. Y'all not nice. Like, there is Southern hospitality, but some of that Southern hospitality is fake. When I moved to New Orleans, I did do some assimilation. In New Orleans, you say hi to random people. Not that in Detroit we ain't do the little head nod, but y'all know in the South is on a whole nother level. And if we're going to be honest, oftentimes when Black people live in predominantly Wahite cities, if they have a Black community, they do still keep some of those elements. Like when I'm living in Los Angeles, when I go to Lamert Park, Inglewood, I'm saying hi to random people. I just don't do it out here in the Valley, because also the Black people in the Valley adapt to what the Wahite people doing. So Black people out here don't say hi. Some of these people are weird, but okay. But when I go to the Black areas, we doing the stuff. And if we take the time to learn about Black Northern culture, if you gonna go around saying hi to random people, depending on the city you are in, you gonna make yourself a mark. And if we go all the way to New York City, do you know how many people them people see on a daily basis in one day? Do you not know how counterintuitive and how much time it would take up in their day if they said hi to every single person that they pass? Now, can we use some logic? Now, yeah, when we go to the South, maybe we need to adapt. But if somebody is from the North, think about why they're not saying hi to you. They come from a place where they pass 1,000 people a day. It is not time conducive to say hi to all those people. Now let's review. This is an image of the characteristics of Wahite supremacy. Let's start with perfectionism. Now, as a Black person, if you weren't a perfectionist or didn't have imposter syndrome before working with Wahite people or at a Wahite company, you now have it. Because when I worked at one of them companies in the South and I made my first mistake in 2 years, you would have thought it was the 51st mistake, the way them people reacted. Another one, only one right way. We was raised right. We was raised right. Okay, wake it up. Wake it up. And when I moved to South Korea, that was an expansion of me knowing that people could live in a totally different way than how I live, and it could still be correct. The next one, fear of open conflict. Y'all talking around the point. Go back to my examples that I used. The right to comfort. Now, some of this was out of self-preservation living in the South, because comfort was akin to not losing your life. So this was very important in order to adapt to the Southern culture. But some of my northern ways living in the South gave me so much peace of mind, because sometimes the tips that my Black Southern coworkers would give me in certain situations, I was like, y'all on some step and fetches type stuff, and I do declare that I do decline, because I ain't doing that. Another one, I'm the only one. Now, the definition of this, according to the Wahite supremacy characteristics, is totally different, but this is a phrase that all Black people use. Oh, I thought only I did that. Oh, I thought only my family did that. Now, depending on the person, it could be Black culture hyperbole, just like recently we did with, oh, I ain't know there was Black Scottish people over there. That's hyperbole. That's a part of culture. But some people, the people that be dead ass serious, that's who I'm talking about. And that is why some Black American people don't realize the expansiveness of our culture, because in an American context, and we think very individualistically, and so we only think, oh, only we do it, or only our families do it, not realizing that the Black American community does that. So that American individualism, that kind of speaks to our thoughts, our personal thoughts on Black American culture and how we don't think of it as congealed as it actually is. And let me read this concept that I've heard before. In the South, they don't care if you live next to them as long as your socioeconomic position is below them. In the North, they don't care how wealthy you become as long as you stay out of their neighborhood. And this actually speaks to sometimes in New Orleans where you on one street, you be in the hood, and the next street over, it's like big houses. I'm like, why is this? I thought the hood was the hood, and then the rich people live where the rich people is. But in New Orleans, in some spaces, maybe it's because not a lot of space, you be in poverty on one street and then in opulence on the next street. So, in the same way that the interaction with Wahite people determined how Southerners act, it is the same way in the North of how we were able to interact with Wahite people in the North that determined the behaviors of Black Northern people. If these Black people are moving to these industrial, cold, brick and stone laced cities where Wahite people don't want to be anywhere near them, do you think the general city culture is going to stay similar to the South? No, it is not. So at the end of the day, people be trying to make so much stuff exclusive by naming it Southern culture or HBCU culture, and sometimes it's just Black culture. When you learn about people in the North, and we still do the same things, now it was formed in the South, but now it's Black American culture. And that is not to say that there is not Black Southern culture, because them pickle pig lips, I ain't doing it. And that's not to say that there isn't HBCU culture, because there are things that are very specific to HBCU culture. But sometimes if we zoom out the macro, it's Black American culture, and we all do it. If you take the time to learn about the Black Americans that moved to the North, you would see how similar we are, because this egregious separation mentality is some Wahite people shit.